people you love, play 5 songs they love, and tell you why.
For so many of us, My Chemical Romance soundtracked our angsty youth. Their theatrical music was mirrored by their wild shows, and Gerard Way was at the centre of it all. He wasn't just a muso, he was an illustrator, a comic book author, and most of all, a fan. In 2015, he was in Australia performing at the Soundwave Festival off the back of his debut solo album, Hesitant Alien. He was supporting the Smashing Pumpkins too, and I grabbed the chance to take 5. We're in the thick of some brilliant conversations from the past here on the Take 5 podcast, diving into 14 years of co-hosts with musicians from all over. Before we got into the songs that made Gerard Way who he was, we talked about that first solo album and the catalyst behind its making.
The band was, My Chemical Romance was dissolving, and I just kept making music. And I felt very compelled to keep making music. So I hadn't let the end of My Chemical Romance really stop me, as just making music was just something that I did. So I wasn't overthinking at all. I was just making music. I was making new songs every day. And I wasn't, it was happening very quickly. And then by the time we'd gotten to no shows, I realized, I'm making an album, So.
And in terms of the sound of it, you've said yourself, and you can hear it through the record, there's a big Britpop influence through it. It is quite different to what you did with My Chem.
Yes.
Where did that come from? Had you always been a fan of Britpop?
I have. I like to almost go with my instincts and make what I feel is missing, and also make what I feel like the universe needs or wants. I refer to it as kind of putting my hands in the soil and figuring out what the world needs. And, I'd been a huge fan of Britpop from when I was like 15 all the way through art school. And that music always stayed with me. That was always my favorite music. But when it came time to start My Chemical Romance, I didn't want to start a band that sounded like that, because that had been done. And I wanted to, and then I thought about what was missing and what I felt the world needed, and it was My Chemical Romance. So now, after My Chem was done, I was like, all right, well, what do I feel like people need now? And I felt like they need Britpop and fuzz pedals and shoegaze and noise. And so that's what I did.
Do you think about that in your artistic life, in your illustrations and in your music, that you're always thinking, what is there that's missing in the world and how can I fill that gap?
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from, what I want to see. A lot of what I make is what I want to hear. And so it's usually missing sometimes. There's a lot of bands I like, obviously, but there's always it's always not quite exactly what I'm looking for, Even my favorite bands. Well, with my favorite bands, it's like I wish I thought of that. Like with the Pixies.
Don't we all?
Yeah, like the Pixies are probably like the number one favorite band of mine, where I'm like, oh God, I wish I had figured that out.
Britpop is something that was big in Australia. I know in the UK, obviously, where it began, it was really a response to American music and Nirvana and grunge and this kind of, taking over of their scene by American music. So they thought, okay, we're going to hark back to this pop, a big sense of irony.
Yes.
But was it ever big in the States? Did Britpop break it in the States at the time it was breaking it everywhere else?
It wasn't huge, but it was selling shows out, Like, I'm pretty positive when I saw Blur at the Roseland, it was on the Great Escape tour. I think I was sold out. Pulp, when they came to Irving Plaza, they sold that out in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was underground. Like, you only had, if you were lucky, 1 or 2 friends. Basically, you were going to these shows alone because you didn't have many friends that were into it. So I had like 1 friend, and we would go to these shows. And it was just a line of kids that didn't know each other, just all into this really cool music. And I think it was because it was a response to grunge, and because me friends and myself didn't respond to grunge. So it was like, oh, this is what we want. We want Britpop.
Supergrass is the first choice. Their very first single, I still remember the first time I heard this, and it has that same effect every time I hear it in the many years that have followed. Caught by the Fuzz. What a great song. Why did you choose it? How did this make Gerard Way?
I have vivid memories of standing on the subway platform listening to this on Discman at that time. I'd finally switched to compact discs, and it was just life-changing. It was I hadn't heard something. It was such a breath of fresh air. It was so youthful and exuberant and fun. Like, fun had been missing from music for so long. Everything was kind of darker, kind of mundane, and grunge was just very, it was kind of a drag.
It was heavy.
Yeah, it was heavy. And I heard Supergrass, and I was like, oh, this is what I think rock should be.
It's David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, and 5 Years, yes, the song that begins it. Tell me about that choice, David Bowie, 5 years.
My experience with David Bowie was, I was very young, and so the Bowie that I knew was Let's Dance Bowie. Put on your red shoes and dance. And China Girl Bowie. I feel tragic like and then Labyrinth Bowie.
Oh, so, good era.
Very good era, yeah. But I hadn't realized who he was before all that.
Yeah.
Until I got to be about 17 years old, and I was like, you know what? There's something about the title of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, the rise and fall of, obviously. And I was like, let me check this out, because it's a concept record, and I'd started to become very interested in concept records. And of course, I would go on to make them. And so I put this record on, and I was like, oh, this is like a completely different guy. Like, this is a totally different thing. And it was cold, and it rained, so I felt like an actor, and I thought of more, and I wanted to get back there. Your face, your race, the way that you talk, I kiss you, you're beautiful, I want you to walk. We got 5 years stuck on mine, 5 years. And I remember the first track pulled me in right away. And years later, when we would make Black Parade, I wanted, the song that starts the record, the end, to feel like 5 years. But Bowie, there's a handful of artists, Smashing Pumpkins, the Pixies, David Bowie, and I'd say David Bowie is probably my biggest influence.
That song in particular is really, I guess, about decadence and what happens when you know that no future exists.
Yes.
Is that an attractive prospect to you, that freedom of going, okay, this is all we have?
Yes, absolutely. The theory of having no future is, to me, what fueled rock and roll for me. It's this almost this death fantasy. You don't really want to die, but you kind of feel like it's not up to you, and you kind of feel like your time is short, and you really got to make something of it. So it's all part of the fantasy, and that notion was very important to me.
If you only had 5 years, or if we all only had 5 years, what kind of art would you make?
I don't know. I don't know what kind I would make, but I would make the most that I could.
Do you think you'd abandon responsibility, that you'd just be decadent and do whatever you wanted for yourself?
I think I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is balancing my life as an artist and my life as a husband and father. I'm extremely happy with that. At the end of the day, I wouldn't have to have made that much art as long as I could have both.
I guess if we're talking about decadence as well, My Chemical Romance, one of the most decadent bands of the last decade or so.
Interestingly, yeah.
Some incredible outfits and an incredible legacy that you left. When it all began, if you can cast your mind back, what was it about that time in your life that made you want to share the sound that My Chemical Romance would become?
I was very frustrated. You know, there was, to me, something about being in your early 20s that felt a lot like being dead. And it's hard to explain. You felt non-existent. You already felt like you were dead. Or you felt like a vampire or a zombie. I really connected with the film Trainspotting because Trainspotting seemed to really capture what it feels like to be in your 20s and dead at the same time.
Choose life. I chose not to choose life. I chose something else.
So I had this, I felt very strongly about that, and I felt like that was the message, or rather, to overcome that feeling was the message of My Chemical Romance.
And do you feel like you overcame that feeling and you stopped when it was time to stop?
Absolutely, yeah.
You didn't want to do it again?
I didn't. I actually felt like the band had overcome that feeling long before. I felt once Black Parade was done and there was this Megadeth fantasy that in the end it starts as a very dark record about death, and in the end is this very hopeful record, and it's a celebration. I felt like that was mission accomplished, you know. That's probably where I would have called it, you know.
How did it feel to connect with such a huge audience, and particularly with people who were quite young, probably going through that same sense of loneliness, possible despair, and then connecting with your music? Did you feel a weight of responsibility?
Absolutely, and I think it was unavoidable to feel that responsibility, you know. But it worked well for me as a songwriter and as a frontman, because up to that point, I felt like you have all these kids' attention, and it felt like nobody was up there saying anything to them worthwhile. It just felt like they were like rocking out, or it was about excess, you know, rather than bombast. And I wanted to get up there and actually try to make a difference in between the songs and talk to them about subjects. Wanting young women to feel empowered and strong was a very big thing to me, especially in those days, because the audiences were largely made up of young women.
My mother was the wand into my legs and to my tongue. You should have raised that baby girl. I should have been a better son. If you could count on the infection, they can amputate it once. You should have been, I could have been a better son.
We're going to stick around in the 70s with a man who you've already mentioned today, the body of liquid that is Iggy Pop.
Iggy Pop.
Search and Destroy from the Raw Power record with the Stooges.
I'm a ski-walking cheetah with a hat full of napalm. I'm a runaway son of the nuclear aid bomb. I am the world's forgotten boy, the one who searches and destroys.
Where does this take you if we're talking about the songs that made you?
This, you know, I fell down a rabbit hole basically once I got Ziggy Stardust. Then it was Transformer by Lou Reed.
Oh, so
and
good.
Raw Power, and then it was all the Stooges records, and so, you know, it spiraled out at about 17 years old. Right, that's where I really connected to proto-punk and glam. Velvet Underground was huge to me. You know, like, to me, they'll always be the first art rock band. So this is connected to all of that.
Sleater-Kinney, going back to the early days of 1996, their Call the Doctor record, I Want to Be Your Joey Ramone. And Sleater-Kinney have just returned after 10 years of being away.
Yes.
And smashing it with their brand new record, No Cities to Love. But you went back to 90s world, Sleater-Kinney. How did this song make you, if we're talking about the songs that shaped Gerard Way?
You know, it made me because there was a punk scene that I didn't feel very... When I discovered punk rock, I think a lot of the bands that I had liked had already broken up, like the Misfits and things like that. And I didn't find the punk scene to be very welcoming, you know, or definitely not very welcoming. But more importantly, I didn't fit into it. The music didn't speak to me that much. I was still listening to bands like Sonic Youth and the Pixies, and so I'm not really a punk kid, but I got really into Riot Girl music, you know, and some of them specifically more than others. Like I got into Bikini Kill, I got into Sleater-Kinney, and I got into Helium. And while Bikini Kill embodied, you know, the Riot Girl movement, I felt that Sleater-Kinney and Helium transcended it a little bit, and or maybe part of it briefly, but then kind of evolved maybe out of that. Yeah, and Sleater-Kinney was the one that spoke to me the most. And it gave me this real appreciation for guitar work. Like, their guitar work is amazing. And I loved the idea of this song being this kind of like gender bending thing, you know, about wanting to be somebody's Joey Ramone. And we cover this song. We covered it in the past. The week we were learning how to cover it, we were in rehearsal and they had gotten back together. So it was like, wow, that's really weird. And we should absolutely be covering this song then.
You featured on the first video for
the
title track. Really cute video if you haven't seen it. Sleater-Kinney basically asking a whole bunch of people to put headphones on and then, you know, karaoke their single.
Yeah.
There are no cities, the cities to love. It's not the cities, it's the weather we love.
And they're singing along, and everyone's singing along that wonderful guitar lick as well, which is what we all do. With that song.
Because they're all about the licks too.
Yeah,
Sleater-Kinney.
incredible licks.
And oh my God, I was so nervous to do that.
Really?
Yeah, she wrote me.
You were nervous to sit in front of like a computer screen? You've been up on stage in amazing outfits and stuff, and you're just there and you're nervous?
Yeah, I don't get nervous for that stuff really. Well, I get like this good kind of nervous. I get like these butterflies, but not this kind of nervous. But so Carrie like emailed me and she was like, would you do this? And I was like, yeah, sure. And it took me weeks to do it because I had to build up the nerve to do it. And you know, I just had the headphones on and I just sang it, and I did it twice, and I picked the second one, and I don't know, it was real nerve-wracking, but I was happy with it. I was honored and happy to be a part of it.
You can lip sync Sleater-Kinney very well. You can check out Gerard Way doing it, as well as a whole bunch of people, including Connie Britton, also known as Tammy Taylor from Friday Night Lights. She makes an appearance.
Yes.
Evan Rachel Wood's in it. A whole bunch of people.
Yeah, there's a very, very diverse group of people on there.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see you there, and then to hear your fascination and love of Riot Girl is very cool as well.
Yeah. It just felt like I felt like I fit in more with that. You know?
Talking about fitting in, I mean, you mentioned it before about listening to Britpop in the States where it hadn't really broken through, and then just feeling like you were out of step with the punk scene at the time. Do you feel like as a punter, as someone who listens to music and loves music, that you've kind of always been an outsider and a bit of a loner in the worlds that you love compared to what everyone else is into?
Yeah, still to this day, I feel that way. You know, even when My Chemical Romance was at its largest, I still felt a little bit like that. Maybe that's one of the things that started to turn me off from it, as I started to feel less of an outsider. I started to feel more a part of the bloodstream of modern rock and radio rock, and maybe that was one of my aversions to it, you know. But yeah, from the bands that I listen to the music that I make, I've always felt like an outsider, and I love that. And to me, This Is Hardcore, the album by Pulp, is the ultimate follow-up album of all time, in my opinion. It opens with a song that tells you you're gonna like it, but not a lot.
You're gonna like it, but not a lot. And the chorus goes like this.
They knew how to play with expectation. You have different class, and it's this. Obviously, they made a lot of records before that, but it was this huge breakthrough record, and it's a pop record, and everybody falls in love with Pulp, and Jarvis is this icon, and then they make this really dark album, and my favorite song off it is a cross between The Fear or This Is Hardcore, but cinematically the video for This Is Hardcore was a big influence on how I felt like some My Chemical Romance videos should be shot.
You are hardcore. You make me hot. You name the drama, and I'll play the part.
If we're talking as well about this sense of irony that was in Britpop, this song in particular, lyrically, was really about taking away that irony and going, okay, this is what it's about. This is the core of what it's about.
Yes.
Let's just cut the bullshit and go straight to the heart of it.
Right, let's make it super raw and super naked, and let's just get to it, yeah.
I do want to touch really quickly on your comic book life because it's just as equally a huge part of your existence, and you continue to create. What are you working on right now, Gerard?
I'm working on Umbrella Academy Series 3, which I'm in the process of, I'm doing note revision, and I have when I get home, I start scripting because then Gabrielle's ready to start drawing in April. So I'm very, very excited to revisit Umbrella Academy.
And is this always a part of your life every day as equally as music?
It kind of goes back and forth. I have to be, when I'm making a record, sometimes I pull like 10, 12-hour days, but I still want to keep my family and my life as much as I can. I still want that connection. It's what keeps my art healthy, actually. So I have to basically choose what I want to do with my 8 hours every day. I could split it up into 2-hour chunks, 4 hours and half, but some days it's comics, some days it's design work, some days it's playing guitar, some days it's writing music. So it changes all the time.
The day job of Gerard Way.
Yeah.
Comics or music today?
Comics, music, drawing. Oh, it's so rough.
A brilliant end to some killer selections and conversations with Gerard Way, taking 5 with the songs that made him. He was in Australia supporting Smashing Pumpkins, and if you're a fan of Billy Corgan, scroll back in your feed. My Take 5 with him from back in 2012 is right here as well. I'll see you next time for more trips down memory lane.
Take 5. The Take 5 with Dan Rowe. Every week, hear the people you love.
Hi, I'm Joan Jett. Hey, this is Nana Cherry, and I'm taking 5.
Talk about the 5 songs they love. Hear stories of discovery.
And I heard this thing coming out of the speakers. I was like, oh my God, what is that noise? Wow.
And the songs that changed how they saw the world.
It just affected me deeply. I never knew rap could be that powerful.
It's like a jungle.
Join Zan Rowe and Take 5.
Life 101 with Kimber and Zan.
Pull up a chair.
Subscribe now.